left side, right side, left side, right side. It has a lot of goop in it. The obvious thing in the ventricles is the chordae tendineae, the tendinous cords that are anchoring the atrioventricular valve flaps to the wall of the ventricle. And you can definitely see the valve flap here, see this whitish tissue here. And if I push on it, I'm stretching these chordae tendineae. So these here, they are on the left, and peeking in on the right side. Let's see this one. Here they are on the right side also. That's kind of a mushy, rotted a little bit. The important thing to realize about the atrioventricular valves is that when an atrium contracts, these just fall open. There's nothing to hold them back. So the atrium contracts and the ventricle fills. And then when the ventricle contracts, it pushes on the blood, and that causes the atrioventricular valve flaps to move toward the atrium, but there's only so far they can go because they're stopped by these chordae tendineae, and that allows them to close toward the atrium, and only they stop in the closed and sealed position. So chordae tendineae are really preventing backflow of blood from the real high pressure in the ventricle into the low pressure atrium, so that blood has to exit via the other passage here, and this, where is it going? Systemic aorta is right here. Okay, so there it's coming there, and it's coming right down here. So blood is pushing into the systemic aorta this way, and when the ventricle relaxes, the aorta has been stretched and the blood starts getting pushed back, but it runs into these little semilunar valve flaps. There's one, and I don't think can I find one on the other side? Not nicely. Let's try this one. Oh, here I am, this side. Semilunar, yeah, there's a nice semilunar, and here's the other semilunar in the systemic aorta. Now, these are like pockets of tissue on the side of the aorta, right where it leaves the heart. So normally they're, flattened against the side. When blood is going this way, they just passively flatten against the sides of the aorta. But when the aorta is the one creating the pressure, then they pouch out and they close so that blood cannot go back into the ventricle. The same is true on the right side of the heart, that atrioventricular valve flaps are held in position by the chordae tendineae, which, when the atrium contracts, the ventricle just fills because there's nothing, the valve flaps just flop into the ventricle. But when the ventricle contracts, the valve flaps move in the opposite sense, but they're held by the chordae tendineae. Here, with the atrioventricular valve flaps, here they are, the semilunars, blood has been pushed from the left ventricle into the aorta. When it's pushing that way, you see these just collapse against the side of the aorta wall. When this is relaxing and blood pressure in the aorta is pushing back, these inflate like little half balloons, and that closes the aorta off so you don't get blood flowing back into the heart. If someone has a valve problem or has valve replacement, it would mean that there's something wrong with one or the other set of valves, and blood is flowing back the wrong way, which would greatly decrease the ability of the heart to circulate blood to the body, and that's why you would need valve replacement. I always use the name atrioventricular valve for the ones with the chordae tendineae, and semilunar, and saying what aorta it's in, pulmonary or systemic aorta semilunars, because that really places me. In human terminology, There are other names that are put on these darn valves, and I never can remember them. And as I see it now in the human anatomies, they're moving over to the general right and left atrioventricular and right and left semilunars. They seem to be getting away from the specialized terminology. If you use that special human terminology, I will go look it up and figure out if you're right or wrong. Again, as I said, the muscular parts of the heart are the ventricles because they have the most pumping to do. An atrium and an auricle is only moving blood that far. That doesn't require much muscle to do that. And the left ventricle has much more muscle around it than the right ventricle does because the right is only pumping blood through the lungs, whereas the left has to pump blood throughout the entire body. So this side has the biggest job, this side would be second biggest, and the atria would be pretty equal in the amount of push they have to do to fill a ventricle. We always talk about the left ventricle being big and the right being smaller, but I think you have to realize the chamber, the space inside for blood should be equal, because it's the same amount of blood that's being moved from chamber to chamber each time. And I think that looks about right. The space in here is about equal to the space over here in a kind of relaxed state. The way you figure out what vessel is which is work backwards. Big one, very muscular, is systemic aorta. So going backwards from there takes me right to my semilunar valves and into the left ventricle over here. They're reversed, but okay, the one with all the muscle is left. No question about it. Finding pulmonary, that one is going across. I think it's right in, where is it? Here's pulmonary, got it, right there. And it's a bit muscular. Is that it? Yes. So I'm going backwards and I'm ending up on the right side of the heart. There I am, just as I should be for pulmonary. Is that a big wad of blood? I think so. Yuck. Well, I'll leave it there. Pulmonary veins, where are they? They should be coming in on the left side. That was is that the pulmonary aorta? Where am I going to get the pulmonary veins? Maybe here. There's a vein. Veins are very thin-walled. They may have some muscle, but compared to the arteries, they're much thinner walled. So that one, yes, it's coming into the left atrium. So that is a pulmonary vein there. Vena cava should be coming in on the right side, very thin-walled, so I've got to just kind of poke around for something. Let's see. Oh, what's that? Yeah, there's part of vena cava right there, coming into the right atrium.
Posterior vena cava? Hard to say.
Hard to say. Let's see, does it go? I guess it just cut off there, so that's about what it is.
Auricles?
The auricles are these things, and they extend the atria. In other words, if I poke up into an atrium, here we go. I should be able to go into an auricle, sort of. I'm just going to cut through an auricle. Let's look inside. When in doubt, just do something that may clue you. That's pretty meaty, isn't it? Mm-hmm. That's interesting. It looks like it has spaces, but then it's quite muscular. I've never cut into one of these before. That's weird. I expected it to be more hollow.
Is it spongy?
Look at the texture. It seems to be all muscle with little sort of holes throughout it.
Maybe.
Yeah, I can punch in through the holes and go into the atrium. So that's interesting. I ought to go read about auricles because obviously there's something I don't know. I always assumed they just enlarged the atria, but they seem to be a bit more solid than one would expect.
Mm-hmm.
and that makes no sense to me. Okay, so get hearts. You're welcome.